We already have property at Butterfield Park. That's where Public Works is already. The thought is let's just re-envision that space, see if it's cheaper for taxpayers. We do need bigger bay doors. We can't park some of our big plows, our big truck. We can't park them in a garage right now, or if they need to get worked on, our mechanics are working in the snow. We need the facility. Sometimes in government it's easy to say, what do you want in a building? And we give everybody what they want in a building. But instead saying what's functional, what do we really need? Because it's taxpayer money, right? So we want to be careful with that and say, okay, this is our budget. Now we start working with an architecture firm to design it. Still a few years out, but see what that space could look like for us.
Welcome to Herrimanology,
the official podcast to keep up with Herriman City.
We'll take you inside the city, explore the latest news and updates, show you how your government operates, and discuss the issues that affect us all. Now, here are your hosts talking all things Herriman on Herrimanology.
All right, welcome to Herrimanology. It is Thursday, February 27th, and man, February's gone tomorrow.
Gone.
Just like that.
Good riddance. This
time of year, the calendar goes really fast and it's one of those months, at least at the city, and for other people who are involved in the legislative session, I'm sure everybody has this at work or elsewhere in life, where the days are just eternally long, but the month is super short.
Goes fast, gone.
Is that kind of what it feels like? That's February. February's a short month anyway.
Right. But it feels shorter because of what we go through in February. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So, anyway, Ice Ribbon closes after tomorrow, so I'm going to go tonight, hopefully.
Nice.
My first time there in a couple of years, which is kind of wild because I walk by it out of the office every day. But
right.
Anyway, I'm going to take my wife there tonight.
Good for you guys.
I'm John LaFollette, Communications Manager for Herriman City, joined today again by Mayor Palmer. How are you doing?
Good to be here again.
We'll talk about the City Council meeting last night. I'm curious because I missed it.
Right.
By the way, I missed it because I had an orchestra rehearsal for an orchestra, and I got shamed here at the office yesterday for not being in our jazz band who just performed on this last Monday. I didn't make it to that concert, but I think you did.
I did.
How was the Herriman Jazz Project?
It was great. It's fun because I love the jazz band, but it's grown, right? It's grown and improved since they started. It was just a smaller group when they first, started a couple of years ago. Just Monday night was just phenomenal. I mean, it was... I still, snap into Fever. They played Fever and some other great stuff. It was legit. It was awesome and good crowd for them. It was
awesome.
great.
Glad to hear it. I'm not in a jazz group, so if they ever need a bass trombone player.
And it was me shaming you.
It was.
To be fair, you live in the city.
I wasn't going to call you out, but yes.
Yes, I did shame you. I was recruiting you. I wasn't shaming you. I was recruiting you.
That's a better way to put it. Let's talk about the City Council meeting last night. It was pretty short relative to other meetings we've had. The work meeting was, as far as I know, just a legislative session update, which is an ongoing meeting item this time of year. In the general meeting, you talked a little bit about the Public Works facility, correct?
Yep.
Can you fill people in on what that discussion, and fill me in on what the discussion
right,
was
yeah.
about?
So really, this was we made the decision a few years ago, and we've talked about this kind of in relation to the athletic complex discussion a little bit, but we had made the decision a few years ago to move Public Works away from the 5600 West, 129th South location. It's just next to homes. It's just not smart. We already have property at Butterfield Park. That's where Public Works is already. So kind of the thought is let's just re-envision that space, see if it's cheaper for taxpayers. So really, this was just approving a small, I think it's $80,000 to go to, really to work with the firm to design. There's about 7 acres we're working with out at Butterfield Park, the existing facility, to kind of reimagine and design. We do need bigger bay doors. We can't park some of our big plows, our big truck. We can't park them in a garage right now, or if they need to get worked on, our mechanics are working in the snow, right? So we need the facility, but we're trying to get to a place where we can find, sometimes in government it's easy to say, what do you want in a building? And we give everybody what they want in a building. But instead saying what's functional, what do we really need? Because it's taxpayer money, right? So we want to be careful with that and say, okay, this is our budget. Is our budget a $12 million building, which is kind of the early thoughts right now? Is it a $12 million building? What can we get for $12 million in that space? So really, this is just, now we start working with an engineering firm, an architecture firm to design it. So really, we're just early stages. That's still a few years out, but it was just to start the conversation and see what that space could look like for us.
So you mentioned $80,000. It sounds like a lot. You said it's not a lot, and it's correct in the context of just how much it costs to design big things like this. It sounds, to any average person, your own bank account.
fair.
That is a lot of money.
Yep.
But that's just kind of what these things cost. And you mentioned the $12 million kind of ballpark price tag. That's not something that's been spent. That's not something we're really even putting on the agenda anytime soon. That's just kind of, here's what we think a future facility might cost.
That's that's our capital improvement project list that's out a couple of years. It's anticipated kind of a number we put as a placeholder out there. Again, these are just early numbers to try to, we don't have people on staff that can design a whole area like this. So that unfortunately there's that cost there, but it was in the budget. We planned on this happening. So really we're hoping by spending this little bit, it actually saves money long term.
Yeah. So maybe a conversation to be had another day, but just the timeline of a big project like this, from here's a need, and then there's the conceptual and the design and the architecture, engineering, all that stuff before you get to the point of building the thing.
Yeah.
It takes years and years and years sometimes.
It does.
So
yes.
Maybe a conversation for another day, but kind of an interesting snapshot of that.
Absolutely.
Concept.
I like that. Yep.
Also wanted to mention too, before I forget, this coming Monday will be registration opening for community fishing. Springtime, once a week event for, I think it's about 6, maybe 8 weeks, something like that. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But for participants and for volunteers. If you're a participant, just go to herriman.gov/events, and you can register there. If you're interested in volunteering, that is through the Division of Wildlife Resources, DWR. You can also find that linked on our website, herriman.gov/events. Might even be herriman.gov/fishing, I think is the URL, if I have that memorized. We have like 200 some odd pages.
I can't even
if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think it's herriman.gov/fishing.
Always a popular event.
Yeah.
Yep.
And on March 13th, there's a senior paint class. So we're trying to do about once a month senior activities. Last month was bingo. Talked about that last week. Seniors interested in doing the paint class, there's no cost to it, but you do need to RSVP. So go to herriman.gov too many, getting my words mixed up here. herriman.gov/senior-citizens. You can find information and an RSVP phone number there. So,
Always fun. Yep. Always fun.
we did get a question last week from Jerry. Interesting one. This is on a lot of people's minds. We haven't talked about it much here, but I'm sure a lot of people are curious. So Jerry says, with all the recent federal government layoffs and budget cuts, what effect do you think that might have on our city? Also, my dog would like to thank you for all the work on the Herriman trails. He much more prefers the trails than to just walking around the neighborhood. They're seriously a great resource that most cities cannot replicate. So
Love it. That's great.
Glad you like the trails.
Yep.
But let's talk about the federal government things that are going on, budget cuts and layoffs. That's something that's on a lot of people's minds. There are lots of opinions, but
Right.
The question is, how does it impact Herriman City? We get sometimes funding for projects. For example, one that's coming up really starting the next couple of weeks is Old Town water line replacement project. That has a lot of federal money attached to it. But things like that, sometimes we'll get partial or some, I don't know if it's ever been full funding, but some
Right.
funding for projects from the federal government. So if future projects have that kind of in mind, that maybe that'll be delayed, or maybe that won't work out and we have to kind of reevaluate.
Right.
But because it totally depends on which federal agency you're talking about. But if there are fewer staff members, then things are probably going to take longer.
Right.
But fair to say, it probably won't have a huge direct impact to us. We don't get really any funding.
None of
from
our
the federal-
budget is based on anything federal.
Yeah, it's all Herriman City is funded by local sources.
Yep.
That's how it's meant to be. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd want to add with that, but just no huge impacts, at least that we see at this point.
Right. Yeah, nothing. No budget, no other than Old Town water line. Right now, I don't anticipate any impacts, but of course, we're keeping an eye on it like everybody else is.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for today. Short and sweet. Legislative session ends next week, I believe.
8 days, but I'm not counting.
No. I think my wife counts it. My wife is involved with it for completely different non-city things, and everybody's kind of counting down the hours until it's
And I'm sure the legislators are too.
probably, yeah.
So, yeah.
A busy time of year. If you, again, we'll pump their website if you're interested in following any bills, le.utah.gov. there are all sorts of hearings and bills and things that are going on constantly. So that ends next week. Maybe is there anything to update from a Harriman City perspective, or it's been relatively quiet?
It's been quiet. There were a few bills that dropped this week related to housing, related to some other taxing stuff. Like, we're keeping an eye on a lot of stuff. There were a lot of concerning bills that popped up this week. We had a quick call today to come together as cities to try to push back on some stuff, but the next couple of days are going to be crazy keeping up on some of this stuff. So we'll see.
And it's bills sometimes get introduced, and then there's some concerns, and the concerns get addressed.
Yep.
Bills change and get negotiated, and as they move farther along, sometimes the concerns are alleviated or resolved in some way. And sometimes the bills just don't advance. So
yep, and to our representatives' credit from this area, they've reached out on every bill they know we've concerned about, and they've listened to us and honestly voted accordingly, to our concerns represented. So hats off to them for that. And we'll continue to work with them.
So probably too early to give a whole lot of details for those particular bills, but
because still in negotiation, right? They all just dropped the past 48 hours, so we're still
So if there are major updates to give, we'll give them next week or another time. But anyway, so that's all for today. Now it actually is all for today.
Yes.
I ended it, and then we had another topic. Back. So anyway, thanks for coming in, carving out a few minutes.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for listening and watching. As always, send in a question or a comment. Communications@harriman.gov seems to be the favorite place to get questions to us, and that's great. So with that, we'll call it good, and we'll catch you next time.